Seven suits swagger into a small-town diner. They sneer at a broke traveler with a broken watch. One laugh later, the room freezes, because the quiet woman stands, breath steady, eyes level, and in 5 heartbeats, they realize she's a Navy SEAL. The second hand on Raya Carter's watch drags like a tired boot. The crystal is spiderwebbed, a fine crack across the minute line. It was hit by a door in Kandahar. It never kept perfect time again. The diner smells like coffee and onions, and a fry cook's burnt patience. Windows fog at the corners. A neon sign chatters in the glass. Raya sits close to the door, back to the wall. Old habit. The booth vinyl sticks to her forearm. Her wallet sits beside the coffee mug. Empty. She flips it open anyway. Receipts like thin bones. Bus ticket stub. A folded photo of a team that isn't alive in the same way anymore. She is traveling the long road west. A dusty road with no promise except that it goes on. She hasn't called ahead. She tells herself it's a gift to arrive unannounced and whole. She does not say the other thing, that sometimes she fails to dial because the dead are louder. 7 men arrive in a stack of noise. Suits too bright for this town. Cologne, like gasoline. They pull tables together without asking. Laughter at the edge of a dare. The waitress, June, tiny gold name tag, slides a tray out with practiced hands. Owner's in the back. Name on the menu says Hector. The front doorbell keeps announcing, ding ding like this is a parade. Hey, sweetheart, one of the suits says. He points at June, not the menu. He points like he's used to ownership. Raya's watch stutters. Tick, pause, tick, tick. The men talk about prices. They talk about the town. They talk about what they could buy. The whole block, one says. Knuckles ringed. A gold watch rides his wrist like a trophy. Another thumps a glass. Another leans too far toward June when she sets water on their table. Smile, he says. She does. It's small. It has a seam of fear. Hector steps out with a towel over his shoulder. He doesn't say much, he's a dad kind of man. Heavy apron, quiet eyes, he says, let's keep it friendly, and wipes the counter that doesn't need wiping. The suits laugh. Relax, the biggest says. We're tipping, we're generous. June reaches for a dropped spoon. A hand catches her wrist, not hard, but not gentle. The kind of touch that says, you don't decide. He holds. Too long. He waits for her to make it a joke so he can say it was one. Raya looks at the window. A streak of road dust films the glass from earlier traffic. Out there, sun slides down. In here, a kid at the next booth goes silent. His mother pulls him close. Hector's towel has stopped moving. Raya flips the wallet shut, slides it into her pocket. The broken watch sits warm against her skin. She stands. The floor creaks under her boots. Nobody notices at first. She's the wrong kind of threat. Woman, alone, broke. The suits keep talking. One says something about June's hands. One says, let me show you the city. Raya steps to the table. Let her go, she says. Plain. A flat line, no heat. The big one turns. He carries gym confidence and borrowed courage from his friends. Who asked you? Raya looks at the hand on June's wrist. I did. 2 of them chuckle. The one with the gold watch looks at her face like he's trying to place it from a night he thinks he won. You lost, sweetheart? Raya tips her head toward June. Release. Or? The big one grins. Raya doesn't smile. She watches the man's breathing. She notes a hitch from the left knee, old sports injury likely. The gold watch guy keeps his elbow tight to his rib cage, a man who guards, not a man who swings. Another carries weight on his toes. He'll lunge. The hand holding June tightens. June's eyes shine. She's holding still the way a rabbit does. 3, Raya says. They laugh. 3 what? 2, she says. The big one steps in, mouth opening. Raya's watch catches the light. The second hand twitches. 1, she says, and then she moves. The room doesn't. The world seems to lean and wait. Her palm cuts through the big man's wrist bone. A turn. A fold. His shoulders go where she tells them. The table jolts. Glasses spill. The man with the gold watch reaches. Raya's elbow answers and his breath knuckles inward. June slips free. Hector, bless him, pulls her behind the counter. Someone stands so fast the chair skates on tile. Someone else curses. Out by the window the kid whispers, "Mom?" The big man chokes. Raya keeps him down with nothing but angles. Nothing but gravity and intent. "Stop," she says. One of them starts to circle. She turns her head. Just a little. Enough for him to see the part of her that people miss until it's too late. The room feels too bright. He stops. "Navy." The gold watch says, "It's not a question." His look sharpens. "Seal." Nobody breathes. Hard silence climbs the walls. The bell on the door dings again, on its own, like a lazy ghost. Gold watch swallows. Somebody says, "Oh," and then a new voice from the back doorway says, "Carter?" Raya's grip tightens. She knows that voice. Hector's radio crackles under the counter. A baseball game. The broadcaster calls a fly ball into a night that isn't this one. June turns the volume down with a shaking finger. "You okay?" Hector whispers. She nods. Not yet, but she nods. "Carter," the man repeats. Not gold watch. A leaner one. Gray at the temples, clean shoes. He has the posture of a man who expects doors to open. He raises both hands. Not peace. Calculation. "You're a rumor," he says to Raya, "until you aren't." Raya doesn't answer. She guides the big man's arm a fraction. Pain travels through him like an electric fence. He settles, moans. The others step back because the animal in them recognizes something old and final. "Let's not ruin dinner," Grey Temple says. "We'll pay. We'll apologize. We'll leave." He glances at the gold watch, who nods too fast. "We're civilized." Raya watches their feet, their shoulders, their patience. She looks for the first liar. She finds him at once. The one with a jacket too tight. His hands can't stay still. Her mind draws a map, exits, lines of fire, blind corners. She notes the reflection in the pie case glass, a sliver of the back hallway, a sliver of a shadow that doesn't belong to Hector, or a broom. "Apologize," Raya says. The big man wheezes. "Sorry. It's ugly, but it exists." "Your turn," she tells the others. They mumble. June's eyes begin to breathe again. Hector's towel moves. The kid by the window is looking at Raya like she's a comic book in a world that finally admitted it needed one. "Now tip," Raya says. The suits fumble wallets. Cash stutters across the table. It's sloppy. It's a bribe to get out of a storm they didn't predict. The gold watch flares under the light. Raya sees the engraving. A tiny anchor with a serpent of rope. Not a mall brand. A gift watch. Naval. Or a company that wants to be. Grey Temples watches her watching. "You timed that hold," he says. On the second hand, interesting. Raya says nothing. "Who sent you?" he asks. "I sent me," she says. He smiles like a zipper. "We'll leave you to your coffee then, Carter." He nods at the others. "Gentlemen." They begin to back away. It looks like retreat. It's not. The tight jacket man angles toward the back hall. The shadow in the pie case shifts. Raya's empty wallet presses her hip. She remembers a night in a desert where a truck engine died and the team ran out of cash for locals and had to pay with watches and water. She remembers the look. Not greed. Hunger. She has learned how emptiness can make people dangerous. "Stop in the doorway," she says. Grey Temples freezes. "We're cooperating." Raya lets the big one up. He stays low because his body has learned respect the hard way. She scans the pie case again. There. The metal glint that doesn't match any kitchen tool. "June," Raya says. "Phone." June slides it over the counter without looking away. "Dial 9, Raya says. Then 1, then 1. "We don't do police," the man with the tight jacket says aloud, as if reading her. His right hand dips. Raya is already moving. The broken watch bumps her wrist bones. The second hand jumps. She kicks the swinging door. It smashes back into the hallway. A shape staggers. A blade drops and clatters. Gray Temples sighs like a man losing a chess piece he overestimated. He lifts his voice for the room. Enough. The suits freeze again. The knife lies polite on the tile. Outside, Raya says. All of you. They obey. The bell on the door goes crazy as 7 suits and their pride shuffle through. The dusty evening air slides in after them. The kid by the window grins. She's like a... His mother squeezes his shoulder. Finish your milk. Lock the door, Raya says. Hector turns the deadbolt. His hands don't shake. He's seen storms before. You okay? Raya asks June. She nods and nods again, as if the first nod owes the second one interest. You can't stay, Hector says quietly. If they know your name. I was leaving anyway, Raya says. She reaches for her empty wallet. There's nothing to leave behind except a few bills that won't matter to a man like Hector. She folds them under the sugar holder like a secret. She thinks of the dusty road waiting. She thinks of the grandmother she hasn't hugged since the world went sideways. Carter, Gray Temples calls from the sidewalk. His voice comes through the glass like a sermon from a rival church. You travel light, but you carry heavy things. She steps close to the window. He tilts his head, smiles, taps his chest pocket. We have a mutual friend, he says. Raya's throat tightens. Who? He pulls a folded photograph, holds it up to the glass. The reflection turns it ghost thin, but she knows the face before the paper is flat. Her teammate. The one with the laugh that cut through dust like rain. The one who didn't make it out of the alley named for a fruit. Gray Temples taps the photo again. Raya unlocks the door. Night gets on with it. The street 2 blocks long surrenders to moths and porch bulbs. The sedan's back door yawns open like a patient trap. Raya hears her boot soles on the concrete, soft and final. Gray Temples slides in on the other side. The driver is a shape. The air smells like pine cleaner, overdone. Miss Carter, Gray says. Good to finally meet you. She doesn't respond. The photo rests on his knee, careful and cruel. Where did you get that? She asks. He taps the edge. Everybody has a price. Even memories, not mine, but we'll see. The car pulls away. The diner shrinks. Through the glass, June's hand is a bird against the window. Hector stands behind her like a lighthouse built out of apron and stubbornness. Names, Raya says. Call me Sloan, Gray Temple says. The men? Contractors. Subcontractors to the subcontractors. The sort of tree where rot hides in the roots. Why the diner? Convenience, he smiles. And a test. Of what? Of whether you're still yourself. Raya looks past him to the night that runs beside the car. The dusty road leads west. She's counted markers all week. Silos, hand-painted gas price signs, a rusted swing set. An elk on a billboard selling tires. A country the size of grief. She says nothing. Sloan studies her. You walked away from an ocean full of orders, he says. But you didn't leave your compass. She looks at her broken watch. This isn't a compass, isn't it? The driver turns onto gravel. The world clacks under them. They stop under the shadow of a grain elevator, the kind of place that hums in daylight and holds its breath at night. Sloan opens his door. Stretch your legs. Raya remains still. You first, he laughs. It doesn't touch his eyes. He steps out. She follows. The driver stays put, hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. The elevator looms. The metal skin whispers. A train line sleeps 30 yards away. Sloan tucks his hands into his pockets. A woman with no backup. An empty wallet. A broken watch. You make a habit of carrying symbols. They carry me, she says. He nods as if she's confirming a theory he never doubted. A year ago, he says, tapping the photo. Your teammate died on a mission we funded without admitting it. We, not just me. We thought you'd die too. It would tidy things. Raya watches his mouth shape the words. She feels the memory press behind her ribs. The alley. The radio in her ear. The laugh cut short. The door thrown open by a boy who should have been asleep. Sloan spreads his hands. Yet here you are. Here I am, she says. She tastes iron and old heat. Why poke a living wound? Because it keeps you alert. Alert people make fewer mistakes. Well, what do you want? He tips his chin toward the elevator. A package. You'll retrieve it. You'll deliver it. After that, we forget you. You tested me at a diner to hire me for a job. Not a job, he says. A correction. She steps closer. 7 men threatened a waitress to test me? They flirted with impropriety, he says, faux mild. No one was harmed. Raya pictures June's wrist pale under a stranger's fingers. How small it looked. Harm is not always blood. Your arithmetic is wrong, she says. Sloane shrugs. The package, he says. What is it? A ledger. For what? For the kind of men who think towns are for the taking. So stealers of towns write things down, she says. Neat. Nobody trusts memory more than a thief, Sloane says. They catalog what they deny. Raya looks at the elevator door. A chain, a cheap padlock, a dent shaped like a boot heel from an old argument. Beyond it, the hum of machines that are not on. She can sense a heat that isn't temperature, the heat of a place used for something it wasn't built for. And if I say no? She asks. Sloane glances at the driver. The car rolls forward a few feet. The headlights wash the door, then settle on Raya's face. Then we drive away. We visit your grandmother, the one who reads 3 newspapers and keeps the letters in shoeboxes. Raya's back teeth touch. Stay away from her, he sighs. Help me help you, Miss Carter. That ledger ends people you'd like ended clean. No courtroom surprises. No long nights with bad television and worse doubt. Raya's watch ticks. Offbeat. The sound throws time off. Or fixes it. What's inside for me? She asks. Closure, he says. She looks past him to the rail line. A freighter sits like a sleeping animal. Boxcars tagged in colors that never grow old. She thinks of the dusty road. She thinks of the empty wallet. She thinks of a hand on a waitress's wrist and what men do when they think nobody is keeping time. She takes the chain in her hand. It's cheap, it yields. The door teeth apart. Inside smells like wheat that forgot its name. And something else. Sweat and paper and an electrical tang. Sloane smiles like a man who has bet right. Excellent. Raya steps over the threshold. Light blooms, bright and fast. And then the first shot rings out. The shot hits the doorframe. Splinters puff. Raya slides left behind a stack of pallets. Sloane dives for the car, suddenly less professor, more weasel. The driver ducks. The elevator interior is 2 football fields of shadow and scaffolding. Silence drops after the echo like a curtain torn too fast. Who's shooting? Raya calls. Her voice walks calmly to the corners. A second shot answers. Lower. Testing. She closes her eyes for a breath. She hears the room. A fan blade thunks. A mouse chatters nervous notes in a metal nest. A man's breath rasps through teeth that don't fit well. Up on the catwalk. Raya moves. Boxes become mountains. Shadows become doors. She climbs a ladder without letting it speak. Below, Sloane says something like a prayer with 1 vowel. She ignores him. Her watch scrapes the rung. Tick, tick, drag. She counts with it. She knows when to look, when to reach. On the catwalk, a figure shifts near a column. He holds his rifle wrong. He's hardware without instruction. Hired late. Paid in cash that smells like someone else's pocket. Raya waits. The empty wallet at her hip reminds her this isn't charity. This is survival. And choice, don't, she says. It lands like advice. He turns. She sees his eyes before she sees the muzzle. Panic rides them. She steps in. She doesn't break him. She re-aims him. Wall. Concrete swallows a 3rd shot. His fingers go numb. The rifle slides. She pins him with a look that remembers every reason she ever learned to fight. Ledger, she says. His mouth works. Lower office. He nods toward a plywood room on stilts at the far end. They said. His eyes slide past her. He recognizes something. Or someone. They said she'd come. Who said? Your friend, he says. The one in the picture. Raya tastes a lie. He's dead. He said you'd say that. Names, she says, but she's already moving. Down the ladder. Across the floor where spilled kernels crunch like old bones. The plywood office has a window cut crooked. A light inside colors everything yellow with nicotine and secrets. Sloane appears at her side like he's never been scared in his life. Careful, he says too softly. Stay, she replies without heat. He stays. She opens the door. It is a shrine to keeping track. Notebooks stacked. Binders tagged by initials. Thumb drives in a candy bowl. On the desk, a ledger. Real ink, looping arrogance. Numbers that look like teeth. Names written as if names cannot break. Raya touches the spine. Her watch ticks as if agreeing. She opens to the ribbon's mark. The first page is a calendar of crimes. Dates and payments and what got moved where. But it's the third page that reaches up out of the paper and tightens her throat. It's a list. Not product. Not locations. People. Her name sits there as if names can be claimed. Raya Carter, confirmed citing a diner and Leverage grandmother. Sloane leans in. Our mutual friend was thorough. She turns the page. Her teammate's name. With a date that is wrong. Not the day he died. A month later. Post-asset transfer, the ledger says in a neat hand. Explain this, she says. Sloane's face does a quick dance between pleasure and surprise. It appears your friend didn't die when you think. Or he did and the book lies. Either way, the world is untidy again. She closes the ledger. The room feels out of air. Her chest hurts like a held note. We're done. Sloane holds up his palms. We just started. She tucks the ledger under her arm. The cover sticks to her skin with sweat. The pages whisper. I deliver this, she says, and you disappear from my life. Gladly. And my grandmother. He nods as if he's generous. They step out onto the floor. The hired shooter is gone. Footprints like commas in the dust. Driver? Sloane calls. No answer. The car door stands open. The pine cleaner hangs heavier without anyone inside. Raya looks down the tracks. She hears a new engine. Not the sedan, deeper. A growl that knows how to hunt. Headlights bloom at the far end of the access road. Several. A line of bright teeth. Sloane licks his lips. Ah, he says, as if a meeting is right on time. Friends of yours? Raya asks. Sometimes. The new cars roll to a slow stop. Doors open like statements. 7 men climb out. Not the diner suits. Different 7. Less polish. More purpose. A woman steps with them, haircut blunt. Her jaw could break walnuts. She lifts her hand. The others still. Carter, she says, voice like a low bell. You have something of mine. Raya shifts the ledger against her ribs. The watch barks its uneven beat. Who are you? Raya asks. The woman smiles with half her mouth. The one who doesn't need 7 men. She nods at Sloane. He's the one who does. Sloane's smile goes small and private. Evening, Mara. Hand me my book, Mara says to Raya. Walk away. And if I don't? Mara looks at Raya's wrist. Then that broken watch is the only timepiece your grandmother will own. The dusty night tightens. The empty wallet feels heavier than any money. Raya bends her knees. Breath in, breath out. The ledger clings to her skin like a vow. She chooses.